When I first moved to Mexico in 2020, I was really running from the United States, from my family, from the patriarchy, from capitalism. And I did find so much support and so much healing and so much validation and nourishment and all of that in Mexico, just from the people, from the land, from the like fabric of society. As soon as I get off the airplane, um, I just feel this like because I feel the interconnectedness of the humanness of how people interact. Um, but because I didn't have my residency, I was just there on a tourist visa. So I would have to come and go every 6 months. And I started to notice I would get massive anxiety before coming back to the United States. And at first, I was just like, oh, it's capitalism. Because as I was in Mexico, I was able to completely sync up with the rhythms of nature and get a really healthy lifestyle, rising and setting with the sun, eating fruit from the land, being very interconnected with my neighbors and with the community. And so I would get this very strong anxiety before I would have to come back. And a couple years into these visa runs, because it's like I'm 5 years into these visa runs now, it was like year two that I started to have like almost a panic attack. And I was so chilled out. I was at the beach. My lifestyle was so healthy. I had no stress, no traffic, no stressful work, very low bills and all that. I really have no reason to be having a panic attack. Plus, that's not my style. And so I was saying, oh, it's capitalism, it's capitalism, it's capitalism. But then I realized it's actually seeing my family, who very much is like wrapped up in what that is. But as a medicine woman, I am someone who's on a healing path, who's healing myself and offering that same facilitation to others, I would be a hypocrite to not really truly heal with my own family. And that is the hardest thing. The hardest thing. The so hardest thing. So it was really hard for me to come back to the States and to avoid my family, because the United States is very expensive. So just like, finding places to stay with friends who are all super busy and super stressed out and trying to pay their bills and like overextended. Like you can't really stay too long with anyone in California, at least, because it's so expensive here, and like there's not a lot of space. People don't have like extra bedrooms in California. So not feeling comfortable coming around my family was like a huge energy drain, emotionally, financially, in every way, like not having them be able to pick me up from the airport. And so, my Mexican mentor, she was like, I don't care what your family did to you, who they are, how bad they are. I don't care who you think you are, or how much you think you've healed, or what you think you know, or if you think you're better or more evolved or whatever. She's like, I don't care. You have to heal this. That is the root. So the family is the root. So that's where prosperity comes from. Like you're not gonna have healthy, happy prosperity or partnership if your root is messed up. So it has been a process for me of years of excruciating work to try to heal with my family. And it's actually my earth mission. Like they're my first very difficult like case study, clientele, like audience, right? And they're a tough audience. Let me tell you, they are a tough audience. When I first started speaking, they would attack me, and they still do. I actually had to get off a couple platforms. I got off Facebook and I got off Instagram, and they would just attack me, right? But also, it's because I'm speaking out against the patriarchy, and I'm speaking out against some of the more toxic aspects of their culture. And so I happen to be here right now, and it's, you know, many years into this healing journey. And it was, let me tell you something, it was more excruciating for me to not be in contact with them than to be like extremely awkwardly in contact with them. I am at my parents' house right now, and it's not comfortable. It is not comfortable. However, in America, stuff is falling apart so much to a degree that they're finally ready to listen to what I have to say, because they appear to be successful. They appear to have followed the rules and to even have had the system sort of work for them. But even with that, it has so failed them, and it doesn't work. The schools don't work. The doctors don't work. They're just like mafioso pill pushers. The schools are just funneling kids in, making kids more stupid. The mental health programs, like, I can't tell you how much my family spends on cancer treatments and mental health programs and all of these things, which are very preventable when we live in a way with integrity with nature and we reconnect the interconnectedness of the family and society. Like, I was homeless in America for 7 years, but luckily I was living on the frilly fringes of society, like as an artist. So I always had some kind of like alternative bohemian scene to land in, like attics and couches and farms and, you know, doing things like that. But I did not feel safe coming around my family. And that's why people end up homeless. If we don't have an actual network of like, what happens if you lose your job? What happens if you go through a breakup or a divorce? What happens if you lose your job or something? Any of us, if we don't have a network, any of us are vulnerable to being homeless. And where I moved to in Mexico, it is completely matriarchal, which definitely has its downfalls. But one of the positive things about it is that there's no homeless people. Everyone is accounted for. So while in another video I was talking about how I grew up working class in like a poor neighborhood or whatever, but now my parents have moved up. So now they have a nice fancy house, and they wouldn't even let me keep like a box of books here or some sweaters for when I come back to visit. And Mexican people would be like 3 generations living in one room and like store my stuff for me. So we have a lot to learn from the Mexicans. I know I have. They also have a lot to learn from us about like infrastructure and stuff to protect the rivers and stuff. But that's another story. We really need to be working together. So anyways, I'm just sharing my story that as terrifying as it has been for me to come to America, to be in America, to face my family, to come to this environment which feels violent and scary to me, it's been worth it, and they need it, because my family is learning. Like, I am allowed to store a little bit of stuff here now, and I'm teaching them how to love. And yeah, it's been excruciating, but it's been worth it, because our roots, that's our connection to earth. That's our prosperity. It all starts with the family. So if you're no contact with your family, think about talking to them. I have a video on my YouTube page, and it's called How to Do Ancestral Constellations with Yourself at Home, and it'll talk to you about some of my process for how I was able to reconnect with my family. And it has been worth it, and they actually are starting to be receptive to my message, because things are getting so desperate and dystopian here.